Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight, dieting, and constantly feeling like you're starting over with nutrition and fitness? Do you wish you had more energy? Do you want to lose weight and finally keep it off for good? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse. I too have been there, and at the age of 44, I decided I was done with fad diets and chasing a lower number on the scale. I was so tired of constantly starting over and wondering why I couldn't get lasting results. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best formula for women who want to build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, the scale, and your body, let's build your formula for feeling your best. If you're new here, make sure to check the episode details for the link to my newbie starter guide. You'll receive an email straight to your inbox with everything you need to start building your Feel Your Best formula. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hello, it is Monday morning, and that means it's time for a new episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. I'm Lil, and today we are diving into a topic that I know so many of you struggle with. And in fact, I would say that almost 100% of my clients come to me and name this as one of the top issues that they have when it comes to nutrition, and it's a behavior that they really want to change. So today I'm going to be sharing with you how I personally stopped binging, specifically on sweets. You might be someone who tends to binge more on salty chips or things like that, but I'm going to speak to my own experience on this, and I really hope you find it helpful. But before we dive into today's episode, I do have a favor to ask. If you're someone that comes here each week and consistently listens to the podcast, could you take just one little minute and leave me a 5-star review and maybe even a comment as to why you keep coming back to listen? I know you're really busy, but those reviews and comments are the only way my podcast gets pushed out to other people and suggested to people who are just searching on the podcast apps and don't already follow the show. So thank you so much to those of you who have already done this, and I'm so proud of my almost 5-star rating, and I appreciate it more than you know. It just takes 1 second. I currently do this podcast. I don't do any ads or anything like that, and I would like to keep it that way. So if there's one way you could pay me back for the information that I give you here each week, that would be leaving me a review and just letting people know how much you enjoy this podcast. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about binging. I did a Q&A on my Instagram stories last week, and this was one of the first questions that popped up in the question box because I asked, what are your biggest struggles? And this one right away, binging. So I do think we need to differentiate between what I would consider more diet culture induced, behavior induced binging versus a mental health issue of true binge eating disorder. And there is a difference. Binge eating disorder requires mental health support and occasional binging, overeating, emotional eating, just your run-of-the-mill, I go and stuff my face with cookies every once in a while, is not the same as true binge eating disorder. And if you're someone that simply uses overeating as a coping mechanism or something that happens when you diet because it's really hard for you to stick to the diet because you're so dang hungry, then this is who I'm talking to on this podcast episode. Binge eating disorder is a serious eating disorder in which you frequently consume very high, unusually large amounts of food, and you don't feel full, or you feel like you cannot stop yourself from eating. You may even eat to the point where you vomit, and it leads to weight gain, and it's truly a mental health disorder where you struggle to find happiness. And this is something that keeps you from enjoying life. So if you're a woman, then I'm guessing you've had friends. I mean, ever since I was in high school, I've had friends who struggle with binging and purging, bulimia. I've had friends who struggled with anorexia and binge eating disorder. It's just kind of on that spectrum. So that is definitely a situation where you want to get professional help, and someone like me is not the right person to be helping you. If you suspect that you have a binge eating disorder, please get help from your primary care provider, a mental health provider, because counting macros and trying to lose weight and diet and do a fat loss phase is not going to be the right next step for you. Okay, so now that we're clear on exactly what we're talking about here, let's set the stage. I personally am someone who has used overeating and binging as a coping mechanism most of my life. I have never purged. I am someone who despises vomiting or any other GI issues. So I have never had that experience where I've eaten so much that I've actually vomited. I've eaten so much that I've gotten a really bad stomach ache, though. So I think there's varying degrees in how much we personally experience overeating and how that feels in our bodies. But this habit started for me when I was a kid. I grew up in a home that was very obsessive about healthy foods. We were eating vegetarian most of the time. We were not allowed sweets. I never had McDonald's or anything unless I was with a friend's family. We would occasionally get ice cream, but we never had really anything in the house that would be considered like a treat or junk food or anything like that. So when I was presented with those foods, I would overeat them because I didn't know how to fit them into a balanced diet. And I would just overeat anything like cookies, cake, Little Debbie snacks when I was at friends' houses because I knew I wouldn't be able to get those types of foods at home. So it's definitely a behavior that started early for me. And then I would say it also became a pretty frequent coping mechanism. When my kids were really little, I wasn't getting much sleep and I would get stressed out. I was a stay-at-home mom. My kids are just over a year apart in age. My husband at that time traveled 5 days a week. 4 days a week. He would leave Sunday night or Monday morning and he wouldn't come back until Thursday night. And I had 2 babies at home. And when I would get stressed out and I was so fatigued and exhausted, I would eat sweets because it gives you pleasure in the moment, and it was a way of me coping. And now in hindsight, I can see how this behavior over the course of my life has shown itself in different situations, and it's just kind of been my go-to coping mechanism when I'm dealing with a difficult time. And honestly, now I have not binged in probably close to 2 years, and it was not until very, very recently, I'd say within the past week or so, that I walked by my pantry and I kind of said, oh my goodness, it used to be just almost normal to me, even though it is, me talking about this to you right now, this is not something that I talk to people about. But I feel like I need to share it because I know through working with my clients that almost every single person listening to this right now probably relates to it in some way or another. So I have to share and be vulnerable with you and explain how I feel about it because I don't feel any shame about it anymore. That behavior was a result of various situations, difficulties in my life where I didn't have other ways of coping with it. And now I do, and you can find new ways of coping with it. But I just walked by my pantry and now I have 2 teenage boys. They are, close to 6 feet tall, maybe 6 feet tall by now. They work out, they eat a ton of food, they need a ton of calories. And so I do buy sweets and calorie dense foods for them because it gets hard for them. Like they're hungry a lot and they eat their protein and they eat really, quote, healthy foods. But at the same time, they need a lot of calories, and it's okay for them to make up some of those calories in foods that would not be considered a whole food or something like that. So they do have chips and Rice Krispie treats. They have some Swiss Miss little, is that what they're called? Swiss Miss or Swiss rolls. They have some things like that they have their own little drawer in the pantry. And I walked by it and I thought, I cannot remember the last time I went in there and just grabbed a bunch of stuff and ate it. Because honestly, that was a behavior that I had for a very long time. And I haven't even had the urge to do it. And it wasn't even something I was intentionally trying to change or work on, I guess. It wasn't something I'd really thought about during this whole process, this journey that I've been on for the past 2+ years. So I was like, I need to talk about this because I don't feel like we talk about it enough. And so many of you are going into your fridge, your pantry, your freezer, and you're grabbing foods and you're binging in secret and you're feeling like crap about yourself because of it. So the first step in moving away from the habits that we don't want is bringing awareness to it and acknowledging it just to yourself. You don't have to tell anybody else about it, but you got to be honest with yourself. If this behavior is is this a behavior you would want your child doing? Is this a habit you want your child to have? Probably not. So why are you allowing yourself to have it? I'm going to share with you certain steps that I've taken that I feel have been the driving force behind naturally moving away from this old way of coping that I'd had for 46 years, or I guess 44 years, because I guess it's been, I honestly don't remember the last time I did this. So I'm guessing it's been at least 18 months, 2 years, something like that. And here's what a typical overeating episode would look like for me. I would be dieting, cutting my calories, trying to avoid those foods, like the foods that are in my kids' snack drawer, because they weren't, of course, allowed on the diet I was doing, because I had that dreaded, here's your approved foods and here's your unapproved foods. And you even need to make, if you want to stick to the diet, you need to make foods from this recipe book and yada, yada, yada. And I would be at a point in my diet where I was like, oh, I'm being so good. And I'm using the word good facetiously because there was nothing good about it. Because that is not the way to live. That is no way to live. Fearing foods, thinking that one bite of a brownie is going to make you fat and cause you to do harm to yourself and ruin your diet. But I would think I was being so good following my plan. And as the days ticked by and I stuck to my plan and I eat those very low calories, eventually it would catch up with me and I would start to feel deprived. I would feel hungry. And I would be relying on my willpower to power me through and avoid the foods that I, quote, should not be eating. But then what would I do? Literally, sometimes I would go to the store and I would buy a package of Oreos or a little pint of ice cream. And then I would eat it when I got home. Or if I did happen to have something like that in my home, I would just walk by the pantry and instead of just taking 2 cookies, I would eat the entire sleeve of cookies because I was so hungry. And I just remember that feeling, being so hungry and eating and eating and eating until I finally would get to the point where I just didn't feel that hunger anymore. And that's what I was looking to do. I was looking to squash that feeling that I felt because that hunger was so strong. And personally, I tend to go for sweets. And there were times when I was in a very restrictive mindset and I wouldn't allow any of those foods into my home, which now, I mean, I feel like I owe my family an apology. They never complained about it, but I would kind of get on these kicks where I would just be so hard trying to eat perfectly, trying to eat clean and all these things. And I tried to use the out of sight, out of mind method, which I know is a popular way of basically being like, okay, well, if you don't have these foods that you binge on in your home, or you can't see them and it's not obvious to you that you have them, then you're not going to eat them. And I think that works on some level, but I feel like I have a higher level of awareness now of that out of sight, out of mind is really kind of a cop-out, like, to be honest. And if you've ever gotten in your car to go drive and get the food that you're craving, which I have done, then this is a sign that out of sight, out of mind really isn't as effective as you think it is, because I've done that. And the fact is, if you cannot control yourself around the foods that you binge or overeat, then that means you need to work on your relationship with food. And hiding away the foods and trying to pretend that they're not there. I've also been the person that does that, where I hide them. Oh, hide them in the back of the pantry. Yeah, guess what? I know where they are. I'm going to go get them, especially those couple days out of the month when I just really want some chocolate. And if you can't control yourself to eat a normal amount, if you're eating to the point where you're feeling sick, if you're eating massive amounts of calories of these foods that are really calorie dense, have a lot of sugar and a lot of fat, that's not good for your body. And it isn't healthy. And it means you have not learned how to have an appropriate relationship with that food. You haven't learned how to nourish your body, and you get to this point where you just feel so deprived, where you lose control and you are looking to not have that feeling anymore. At the end of the day, any type of diet is deprivation, and this is why we should not be living our lives on a diet, and we should only be approaching a fat loss phase or a diet phase when we are mentally, physically, and logistically ready for it. As I've said multiple times, dieting longer than 12, maybe 16 weeks, that's kind of pushing it. Any longer than that, and you're pushing your body into a state where you can enter metabolic adaptation, where you're just making it harder and harder for your body to lose the fat anyway. It's your body's way of saying, you're starving me. This has been too long. It's time to go back into maintenance and nourish me, build some muscle, and let's do this diet thing later. But thinking that you should be on a diet in a calorie deficit 365 days a year, which is what I used to think. I honestly used to think I should always be on a diet. And if I'm not on a diet, I'm going to get fat. I didn't understand the rational middle ground. I did not understand maintenance. It would be impossible for me to describe every aspect of binging that you experience, that I've experienced. But as I've been talking, I'm guessing you can think of your own behaviors and you can relate to some of what I've been saying. There was obviously an emotional component for me, with my binging. When I would feel stressed or anxious, you're going to reach for those foods that are high in calories, that satisfy you. Biologically, that's what our bodies want. That's what our bodies think we want. Especially if you've been dieting and you're hungry, your body's going to look for the quickest source of energy, which is sugar, and fat, which is a bomb of calories. Fat is the one macronutrient that has the most calories per gram. It has more than double the calories per gram of carbohydrates and protein at 9 calories per gram. So if you eat fatty foods, they're high in calories. And if you've been dieting and starving yourself, your body's going to be like, give me the fat because that is going to give me those calories that my body needs. So I felt like I should always be on a diet, and I didn't know how to include those high sugar, high fat foods in a healthy way because I had a distorted relationship with food. And it's no surprise that I had this as a coping mechanism. I love food. I enjoy food. And I honestly believe that some of us, I totally believe that we all experience things in our five senses slightly differently from other people. I think to some people, certain sounds sound louder and more annoying. I think to some of us who have a very sensitive palate, foods maybe are just a little bit more enjoyable to us. And I am not someone who will ever say to you, food is fuel, just eat this, don't eat that, because that would be a lie for me to say that, because I personally cannot look at food as simply fuel. It is something that brings enjoyment to my life, and I don't want to change the fact that it is something that makes me happy. Okay, so I know you're here to hear my tips, and I don't want this episode to be me telling you how you can overcome your binging. I can't do that. I don't have enough information about you. I have no idea where you're coming from. So I felt like just sharing my experience might give you some ideas on things you could do. But at the end of the day, I do encourage you to, if this is something you're struggling with, it means you have a very poor relationship with food. And I would encourage you to reach out to me, reach out to another nutrition coach who you know is just not going to have you dive right into dieting and is going to help you work on that relationship with food. Because if you think you want to lose weight, if you think you need to lose some fat and you just jump right into a diet and you have not fixed this, it's not going to work, and you're just going to end up right back where you always have. So this is me sharing my experience and hoping you can take away some of this info for yourself and maybe start working on some things by yourself. But truly, if this is something you struggle with, my clients that have come to me with this problem, it is one of the first things that starts to disappear. And the level of confidence and control that you feel when you stop this behavior is just priceless. Okay, so let's go. Number 1, you hear me say this all the time, but I stopped dieting. In hindsight, when I say, well, what is it that really helped me with this, is I stopped dieting. I had that big aha moment when I was sitting there. I've shared the story. I was eating pasta and it was dinner, and I had to eat that pasta because I was taking care of my father-in-law. And he had just had a bone marrow transplant and he could not eat salad or raw vegetables. And I was really tired for, working all day, dealing with the family. We were in the midst of the pandemic and we were all tired and cranky during that time, let's be honest. And I was like, I am just going to eat the freaking pasta and meatballs. I am done. I am done with this. I am done being afraid of eating carbs with my dinner. And I am done chasing a number on the scale. I'm over it. And I just decided right then and there I was done dieting. Okay. So that was really the first step. And then number 2, I learned how to eat in a balanced way in maintenance. And honestly, when I did first start macros, of course, your first temptation is I'm going to start losing weight on this diet. And I literally tried it for like a week. And then I was like, no, I remember I don't want to be dieting. So I went back into maintenance, and it was just everything. I knew I needed to learn how to nourish my body when I'd spent all those years restricting. And it's so tempting to want to lose weight, but it is not the answer. And even when I found macros and I knew this is how I'm going to learn how to really eat in a balanced way, because there's no weird food labeling, there's no weird rule. There are no rules, really. It's just a guide. It's a guideline. That's what it is. It's a guideline. And it can be so tempting to say, I'm going to use my macros to lose weight. Macros alone are not the answer if you're going to use them the same way that you've used every other diet in the past. If you're just going to try to lose weight with them, you're not going to work on your relationship with food in your body. You're just going to end up in the same place. So it's a tool. Learn to use it appropriately. And maintenance. That was the appropriate use of macros. Understanding what it can feel like physically in your body to nourish your body, to have energy, to feel full and satisfied, to not think that being hungry is a good thing, to not think that skipping meals is a good thing, and to have these guidelines to show you this is what it's like to give your body what it actually needs. You just start feeling better. I don't know how to describe it. It is like you wake up from being in a fog. That's what it was for me. So, along with following macros in maintenance, I flipped my mindset. Okay. My mindset had always been restriction. It's good to miss a meal. It's good to eat less. It's good when the scale goes down, all of those things. So instead, I said, instead of having a restrictive mindset, I'm going to use macros to make sure that I'm eating enough. I need to make sure I'm getting enough protein because in the past, as I've shared on here, I was eating ridiculously low amounts of protein on those diets. So I need to learn how to eat more. To have to triple the amount of protein that you're eating, that is a behavior that you need to learn how, that's a learning curve. I had to figure it out, how to eat more protein. It's not that complicated. You just have to change your portion sizes, but it feels really hard in the beginning when you look at your plate and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I used to feel like I was being so good when I just had a little bit on my plate. And I wanted to eat enough fiber. So I want to make sure I'm tracking my fiber. Believe me, when you are getting enough of those nutrients and eating enough calories for maintenance, there isn't much room in there for overeating and binging. You're so full and satisfied that a little something is really all you need. And I started buying little mini ice cream treats, like Blue Bunny has them, Kit Kat has them. I've talked about them on here before, but looking for little treats that are anywhere from like Trader Joe's has the little mini ice cream cones, the little mini bonbons, anywhere from like 60 to 150 calories. You can find a really delicious ice cream treat. And ice cream is my jam. That is what I love. I'm sure you could find things like little bags of Oreos or little bags of Doritos, like whatever it is that you want to fit in. And you're so full and satisfied and you feel so good from following your macro count that you truly enjoy and savor these mini treats. Because I know you're thinking to yourself, this is what you're thinking. I'm reading your mind right now. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to buy these little mini treats, Lil, and I'm just going to eat them all. There's 12 of them in the bag. I'm probably going to eat at least 6 of them, not just one. And that's what I'm telling you. If you're following your macros, if you're eating your protein and fiber, you're not going to have room for it. Maybe you'll have 2, but you're probably not going to eat the whole box. And if you do have that bottomless pit, uncontrollable overeating, then that's where you really need to think about looking for some mental health support. And I'm just being honest with you because I want you to understand it's not your fault where you are right now, but once you have an awareness of something, it is your responsibility to do whatever you need to do to feel better, or you don't have the right to complain about it. Do something to fix it. Reach out for help, okay? If you are someone that has a do-it-yourself mentality and you just want to fix it yourself, then it might be a little bit harder for you. And you might not be able to do it. I hope that me talking to you about this right now helps you realize I am not going to judge you. One of my clients just gave me some feedback, and what she said was one thing she appreciates the most is I do not judge, because I've done a lot of this crap myself and I've beat myself up about it. I'm not going to look at you and go, you freaking weirdo. How could you eat that much ice cream? Because I get it. Okay. So If you are truly following your macro count, getting your protein, getting your fiber, it's going to be really hard to overeat because you're going to feel really full. All right. In a similar vein, number 4, when I look back and said, what's something that's really made a difference for me? And I've mentioned this before, but eating 3 large and filling meals per day. My meals, right now I'm in a calorie deficit, so my meals are about 500 calories per meal. When I'm not in a calorie deficit, my meals are 600 to 700 calories per meal. Is smoke coming out of your ears? Yes, this is how much food I eat intentionally, and I feel better than I have in my entire life. When I was eating 600, 700 calories per meal plus snacks, in addition to that, so that's 3 meals at 700 calories, I was not gaining weight because that's what my body needed at maintenance. Now I'm going to have a new maintenance number when I'm done with my calorie deficit. In my calorie deficit, I'm eating 500 calories per meal. And then I still have 300 calories left over for snacks or to add on to a meal if I want to have a little extra here and there. So my meals are again going to be at least 600 calories per meal. It's a lot of food. When you are nourishing your body, it's a lot of food. It's going to feel like a lot of calories. If you're not tracking your food, I'm guessing you're eating a lot more calories than that, but it doesn't feel like it because you're eating food that comes in small packages versus nice whole foods that really fill you up. But eating 3 large and filling meals per day, knowing that I can set aside some calories, anywhere from 60 to, like I said, 150 calories for that little ice cream treat, or sometimes I'll even have like a little Trader Joe's ice cream bonbon after lunch and then maybe another one after dinner, because I really like to have a little something sweet after something savory. It is just how my brain works. It is what ends the meal for me. When I have that something sweet, I'm done. I'm like, okay, I'm happy. Let's move on to other tasks. And by being satisfied and satiated with that little bit of sweetness, my mind stops looking for something else to eat. I feel full and I'm ready to move on to other tasks and move away from food. I think a huge benefit of this is I am no longer constantly thinking about food and what my next meal is going to be. When you're eating a bunch of tiny meals because you're on a really low calorie diet and they're like, oh, you should be eating 5 to 6 times a day. If you're on a low calorie diet, they're having you do that because they want you to keep staving off the hunger with these little tiny meals. But you're never really truly full and satisfied for any decent amount of time. And that little edge of hunger keeps sneaking back at you. I no longer feel that way at all. I used to eat 5 or 6 little mini meals a day, and now I eat 3 full meals, and I can sit here and do my work. I can go for a walk, and sometimes it takes me to all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already 12 and I haven't even been hungry. And it helps me ignore the pantry and the fridge. If I get up, I got to walk by my kitchen to get to the restroom. And if I'm taking a little quick work break, I'm not even tempted to go in there and grab a handful of this or anything like that because I'm full and satisfied with my meals. Now, in my calorie deficit, I get hungry a little bit earlier, and there's going to be hunger when you are in a calorie deficit. If you're not hungry, you are not in a calorie deficit. And so that is why you have to be mentally prepared for it. And I have organized my meals in a way where I learned in the first couple of weeks what really worked for me and how to prevent myself from having that ravenous hunger that would then lead me to binge. And I have not binged once during this. I'm 7.5 weeks in, almost 2 months in. I have not binged one time. I have stuck to my calorie deficit 100% at, in a, whatever I want to say, a challenging time. I don't want to say at worst, but at any time when I have not been able to stick to it. Like I said, I caught a really bad head cold on my second week. I just went up to maintenance. So I never binged. I was never eating like 3,000, 5,000 calories in a day or anything like that. I just went up to maintenance and then came back down. It's been controlled. I'm I'm in control. Food is not controlling me. Binging habits are not controlling me. And it's been 8 weeks and it's gone so smoothly. So 3 full, satisfying meals. So helpful. Okay. Number 5, I stopped looking at sweets as bad or something that I should not be enjoying. And I realized enjoying my sweets and savoring them really helps me stick to my habits. Yeah, knowing that I can happily enjoy these foods because the bulk of what I eat every single day are foods that are nourishing my body and providing them with the macro and the micronutrients that my body needs. And guess what? I feel better. I have energy. I feel balanced. Okay? When I used to overeat on those foods, did I have energy? Did I feel balanced? No, when I overate on those foods, how do you feel when you binge? Bloated, headache, stomach ache, lethargic. Yuck. And I don't want to feel like that. Instead, I can have my little treat, enjoy it, move on. No headache, no bloatedness, nothing like that. Okay. Number 6. This one makes me laugh because I tried this so hard for so long, but I stopped trying to find, quote, healthy dessert substitutes. Like, I'm really sorry, but I don't want your protein donut or your protein cake or your Frankenstein brownie made with avocados and nut butter. Take that and put it in the friggin' trash can because that's where it belongs. Stop it. There's no need for this stuff. I personally feel there is a bit of a level of disorder with this type of stuff. I mean, people will disagree with me. I have yet to taste one of those recipes that actually tastes good. They taste like freaking garbage. They're dry. I don't know. If you've tried one that actually tastes good, let me know. But I think everyone is in, it's like the Emperor's New Clothes. You're like, oh, this is so good. And everyone's looking around like, yeah, no, this tastes like crap. This is chalky. This is nasty. So if you've truly tried one of those recipes that actually, like on a scale of 0 to 10, what do I like most? Well, the best cake I've ever had in my life, one of my closest friends and I were on a trip together and we had hummingbird cake. Oh my God, it was so good. Okay, that's a 10 for me. Of these like protein desserts that I've tried, they're like a 3. So if you can tell me something that's like a 7 or 8 on your scale of things that actually taste good and a recipe that tastes good, then let me know. I don't want to have phony sweeteners in the background that have a weird aftertaste. Like, no, I want to eat something that actually tastes good. And I would have rather have one bite of that real hummingbird cake than eat some fake ass dessert that's mostly protein powder. I'll save my protein powder for my shakes. I enjoy my protein shakes. I have one almost every single day. Okay. But some Frankenstein healthified dessert is not going to satisfy me. If you enjoy that stuff and you feel like that's some way that you can help reach your nutrition goals and you want to put in the effort to like cooking them or whatever, you can save yourself, whatever, some calories or something that way. Because that's the whole point. They're trying to be like, oh, you can eat this high protein, low calorie dessert. But you could also save yourself the trouble and just eat regular foods, learn how to fit in the brownies and the cookies into your calories. If you don't have enough calories to actually enjoy a real treat, then I would say something is very off and you're either not eating enough calories or you're still fearing foods. If you think that that's better for you than eating a real brownie, there is some food fear there, okay? And you should not be afraid of any food or any ingredient unless there's a medical reason for it. Remember, alcohol and processed meats are the only foods that have been shown to have harmful effects on our bodies. Alcohol is a class 1 carcinogen, okay? Yeah, so I don't want to eat the healthified desserts. Put it in the trash can. For so long, I tried to like those things, and they're just gross. All right. Number 7, looking at the big picture and understanding that things like eating birthday cake and ice cream when you're celebrating someone, it's not going to ruin your goals. Going on a date night here and there. It's about balance and understanding the nuances. And this is the problem. So many diets try to force you into black and white thinking and being all in or all out that you lose or you never have the ability to understand what balance really looks like. And there's so much confusion and misinformation out there, especially with diets trying to trick you into thinking that your weight loss is being caused by something other than a calorie deficit. Like keto, you're not losing weight because there's some magical chemical reaction going on. You're losing weight because you're eating less calories. Same thing with intermittent fasting. A calorie deficit is the only way that you lose weight. So they don't want you to know that you can enjoy a nice slice of cake and a scoop of ice cream and a slice of pizza here and there. You can still lose weight easily and you can still live a healthy life. What matters most is what you do most of the time. So don't fool yourself into thinking that you can just follow your macros Monday through Friday and then eat like a garbage can Saturday and Sunday. You got to track all 7 days of the week, start educating yourself on what you're actually eating when it comes to calories, protein, and fiber. And I'm never going to be that person. How many times have you been to a birthday party where you've got adults and kids and all the adults are like, no, I'm on a diet. Can't have the cake and ice cream. Nope, I'm on a diet. I'm not going to be that person. I love cake and ice cream, especially if you get it from like a real bakery. I'm having the cake. If you get it from the grocery store, I might not eat it because I think their frosting is usually pretty gross. But I'm going to have the pizza and the cake and the ice cream because I understand how to fit that into my life, even when on a calorie deficit. I can plan my day appropriately if I know I have this party coming up and plan how I'm going to make sure I'm getting a ton of protein and fiber in earlier in the day because those foods are probably going to be higher in fat and carbs when I go to the party, and just make it work. And if you have one day where you go over on your calories, you can just wake up the next day and start all over again. It's not that big a deal. Remember, fat gain comes from consistently eating more calories than your body needs, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. That is how you gain weight. So one meal once in a while is not going to be a big deal. Again, you can't be going out Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, and eating like a garbage can, drinking like a fish, and expect that being strict Monday through Friday is going to erase all that. You're probably still going to gain weight if that is what your habit is. So don't look at one meal as being something that is going to make you, quote, fall off the wagon or go off track or however you want to say it. Just wake up the next day and just get back to the habits that define you, the habits that you normally have. It's not that big a deal. I used to let things like that derail me. And it's definitely been a journey to get where I am today to, like, you know, my family loves Chinese food once in a while. We have a restaurant that we love and we go there, and I'm not going to go there and be like, oh, I'm just going to get the broccoli and the chicken. No, I am going to go there. I am going to be getting the crab rangoon. I am going to be getting the fried rice. I'm going to be getting my favorite dishes. And then I'm going to make sure I drink a lot of water and wake up the next day and go back to the habits that I normally have. So I also want to be really honest with you that there are definitely times when I eat more candy or more ice cream or whatever than technically fits in my macros, but I have not binged in a way that has been mindless or out of control. Sometimes I just want to eat the Sour Patch Kids while I watch a movie, and that is okay, as long as I'm not eating them to the point where, number one, I'm unaware of how much I'm eating, and number two, it's leading me to have a stomach ache and a headache, because that's what happens to me when I have too many Sour Patch Kids. But I can go over on my calories here and there, and I love Sour Patch Kids, so I'm not going to feel guilty about eating Sour Patch Kids with the movie. And it's not about being perfect. It's about having an awareness and understanding those nuances and adjustments that you can make so that you can fit these foods into your life. Each and every one of us are coming from different starting points and life experiences. And I shared my story with you so that you can understand that you don't have to be a slave to your coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms that they've helped you cope. They've helped you feel better when you have felt crappy. That's all a coping mechanism is. They help you feel better and pull you away from negative feelings. And you can build new behaviors and responses to difficult situations. Now, when I'm stressed these days, well, first of all, I would say I handle stress a lot better. Making sure that I'm getting a lot of activity in really is helpful to me. Making sure that I go for a walk outside. I use the Bloom app, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy app. If I'm really, I got some really upsetting news a few months ago that was very upsetting and made me very worried. And I dove into that app until I really felt at peace with my emotions and worked through some of it and could take a deep breath and move forward. So there's times when I dive into that because I know I need more of that expert guidance from the therapist on the app. Or I journal a little bit, which is a new thing for me. I never really journaled. Or I talk to a friend or my husband. I used to bottle everything up inside. I'm a firstborn, eldest daughter. I am used to fixing things. I'm used to taking over. I am used to having parenting tendencies and taking over a leadership position in various situations. And I'm used to trying to make everyone else happy. Okay. That is a common tendency of those of us who are firstborn daughters. Okay. And there are no awards given at the end of the day, at the end of your life. You're not going to get a big shiny medal for neglecting your own self-care, to martyr yourself trying to fix everybody else. Because let me just tell you, you can support people, you can be there for them. You cannot fix anyone, especially people who do not want to fix themselves. So stop it. Stop trying to fix everybody else. Take care of yourself. If your behaviors are harming your health, if they're causing you to gain excess body fat from overeating and binging, then please get some help before it's too late, because someday it will be too late. You will be woken up by a diagnosis or some sort of surprise. I know, because that is a reality that we have experienced in our family that reminded us we need to take care of ourselves. Just because you experience some sort of health concern or diagnosis, it doesn't mean it's your fault. The things that my family have experienced are purely genetics, but it is your responsibility once you know, hey, this is what's happening. There's all these other things we can do to at least make it easier on our body by nourishing our body. Make it easier for our body to maintain the health and wellness that we want. And if you're not at the health and wellness level that you want, you can still get there. So a lot of things aren't your fault, but the theme of this podcast episode is it is your responsibility to start taking steps towards the direction that you truly want to live. And really the first step is awareness and understanding how your habits right now are affecting the outcome a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. Because our future self is simply a result of the habits that we have today. All right, that's it for today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. If you're looking for a one-to-one coaching, I do have spots available, so check the episode details if you're curious about applying for one-to-one coaching. And this time of year, the holidays are coming. Make this the year that you don't gain weight during the holidays. Learn how to nourish your body. Learn how to maintain your weight during the holidays. It will be the best holiday season you've ever had. That was me. I've been there. In my first year of eating and maintenance during the holidays was like, this is amazing. All right, so reach out. The Feel Your Best Formula workshop is only on sale with that early bird discount for a few more days. until November 2nd. So if you want the discount, make sure you order now. Otherwise, the price is going to go up. And I think that's it. Make it a great week, you guys, and I'll see you back here Friday for a mini session. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check the episode details for my new listener starter guide, and any additional resources mentioned in the episode can also be found in the show notes on my website. You can always find me on Instagram at Macros with Lil, and for more healthy lifestyle tips, recipes, and information on my one-to-one and group coaching services, make sure to check out my website. All the links can be found below. If you know someone else who is ready to start building their formula for feeling their best, please share the love and send them a link to the podcast. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and I'll see you back here next week for a brand new one.